Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Clutch Conversations. It's your boy Mike. I hope y'all having a great weekend. We got a special Saturday night episode tonight with Lucas from Lab Exotics. But before we get into that, I do want to say make sure if you are in this hobby in any shape, form, or fashion, please make sure that you're out there supporting U.S. Art and supporting U.S. Art Florida. The link for both of those are in the description of this video. Remember, U.S. Art is the organization which uniquely advocates for our freedom to responsibly keep reptiles and amphibians. So without further ado, we're going to bring Lucas from Lab Exotics. What's up, bro? How's it going?
What's going on? Thanks for having me, man. How you doing?
No problem, no problem, no problem. Yeah, great to finally catch up. I know we had some scheduling difficulties at first, but I knew it was going to happen, and I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, man. I know we've been trying to get this done since like March or something.
So before we even get into all the snake stuff and all the reptile stuff, how was your wife's birthday?
It was good, man. So I had no clue about this service that people provide, but like my wife, like we don't have a pool or anything. But my wife was on her phone and she was like, "Hey, I found an app. There's like a service where you can like rent people's pools, like at their places, at their homes. They leave their homes, you
Oh,
go in their
word?
backyard, and you have access to everything back there." And she found a place, and we just rented it for like 2.5, 3 hours, and it was awesome. So there was cornhole set up. There was a beautiful pool with plenty of shade. There was probably a $3,000 grill that I got to cook on.
Oh,
Um,
nice, nice,
had chairs everywhere. It was a blast. So we all had a good time, and then came back to our place, saying happy birthday, had cake. It was good.
nice. So it's like an Airbnb for swimming pools.
Right, exactly. I'd never heard of that in my life
Never
ever.
heard of it. Wow. So what you put on the grill?
Burgers and brats.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice,
some
nice.
peppers on there too.
Okay. So good stuff. Sounds like a good time. So real quick, so introduce yourself, tell the people about what you do.
Yeah. So again, my name's Lucas, owner of Lab Exotics. I've been breeding reticulated pythons now for this is my third season. I've been keeping them for a total of 5 years, but prior to me even owning retic since 2011, I've been in the forums, in the old school websites before Facebook groups got big, really learning about retics. It was always a goal and dream of mine to own a retic, but I always thought they were out of reach because of they're massive. And then back in 2011, I ran across a on snakes.com forum over in the UK, a Honey Island Superdorf retic, and I was like, whoa, what's that? I started digging into it, and I found out that you could actually own a retic and they could be a manageable size. And so I was like, all right, bet after college I get out, I'm gonna own one. Didn't go that way. I had to beg my wife for to get a snake, and she finally let me have one. And then here we are 5 years later, and I got about 20. Um, so my when I originally came in, my niche was like super dwarf reticulated pythons. I was really into really small retics, and I still have a huge passion for that. But mostly what I'm about, and what I'm trying to spread my passion is for locality retics in particular.
Okay,
So I'm sure you're aware by now we can't import retics. Um,
right.
so what we have here is what we have, and like my what drives me is just having a bunch of different localities and being able to um, breed them, conserve them, keep bloodlines good and fresh, healthy, and be able to just. My whole thing is like I want to bring the wild into my house. I love just having a
Gotcha.
nice wild type, and so most of my collection is F1. I have one wild caught. I have probably like 10 F1 animals, and then the rest are more removed from first generation captive bred. Um,
Gotcha.
I have some small morph projects I'm working on the side that I like to mess with,
Hmm.
but for the most part, I like the small locality to medium locality retics and locality retics that are just that's my thing.
Gotcha. So temperament wise, do you see a big difference between like the F1s or the ones that are that far removed from the wild versus the ones that are further removed from the wild?
Uh, Generally speaking, the answer would be yes. Like I know that I've handled and I've had it mainlands and I've handled mainlands that have been so much more calm than the small locality animals like Kalatoa or other of those localities, and they've been more chill. But to be honest, out of all the F1s that I have right now, I only have one that's a runner. I only have one that likes to move a lot and everything, but I don't have a single F1 that's defensive or nervous or cage defensive.
Okay. I want to say what's up to people in the chat real quick.
What's going on, everyone?
So Serpent Eclipse Reptiles, thanks for coming out. Rob, what's up, bro? Thanks for coming out. J Hill Jr., thanks for coming out. The homie Bosa, what's up, bro? Thanks for coming out. GP Snakes, Gashawn, what's good, bro? Thanks for coming out. Nana D's Life, thanks for coming out. I think I got everybody who's put a comment in there. So if it's your first night visiting the channel, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and be sure to go follow Lab Exotics everywhere that they can be followed on social media. I've got all of the Lab Exotics links in the description of this video, so feel free to go check that out.
Appreciate it.
So what drew you to retics like over other reptiles?
So being younger, way before I ever kept them, Reptiles magazine, Six magazines, I used to see these massive, beautiful creatures. And really what drew me to them was when I started seeing the different type of morphs early on, just like tiger reticulated pythons, the different type of strains of albino. I mean, I when I first saw a purple albino retic, I was blown away. I was like, wait, what? I mean, they're amazing. I know the ball python community is still trying to get something that has that much purple in it, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I was drawn to them by just their aesthetic. They look just really beautiful, but there was always rumors. I hadn't owned one, but there was always rumors that they were extremely intelligent. And growing up, I had kept ball pythons, carpet pythons, Argentine boa, and even had a rat snake. And yeah, when I just heard that retics acted different and they were like intelligent and inquisitive, I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. So yeah, I mean, and then, when I got to owning them and I actually had my first one, I saw it firsthand and everything that people said about how inquisitive, smart, how much they pay attention to detail, how much they watch you when you're in the room with them. It couldn't be more true. I was blown away by it, and I was hooked. I've been wanting to breed snakes since I was a kid, but when I got my one snake that took me like a year to ask my wife to get, I didn't think I was going to be breeding. But then I got her to loosen up her fears of snakes, and now she loves them. She helps out with the hatchlings, and so yeah, that's when I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this.
Gotcha. So I take it your wife wasn't into reptiles before the first retic.
No. And as a matter of fact, she likes to joke around. Hopefully she's joking around, but we met in college and I was playing baseball. So I was like a student athlete, and I never talked about snakes and reptiles like I do now, right? It was like just a secret thing that no one could relate. And I was playing ball. I wasn't there to talk about snakes. And I didn't have any at the time because I was out of town playing ball, out of state, and I rehomed all my snakes before I went there. And so I never talked about it. It was kind of like a long lost passion that I thought was like, it burned. Like I never thought I'd have the opportunity again. And then, so she had no clue about that. And then when I moved to Texas and I married her, I'm on my phone just like obsessing about snakes. I'm like, I need to get another snake. And she jokes around with people now, and she's like, if I would have known you were this crazy, I would have never married
you. That's funny.
Yeah, but no, she's been extremely supportive. She has never said no. She rolls her eyes, but she has been wonderful. So yeah, I just I have a thing where all my friends, even growing up, anybody who's scared of a snake, I have like a goal to remove that fear.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I'm like in my daytime job, I'm a therapist, and so
okay. That's what's up.
So naturally, me as an adult now and as a therapist, it's like I know that fear is irrational. Let's get to the bottom of that.
Right, right. Why do you think folks have these fears of snakes? I
I
got my
think
thoughts, but I'd be interested to hear what you think.
so. I really think it's a worldwide phenomenon. And I think the reason for that is because we have been ingrained. I really think religion played a large part in demonizing snakes
Yeah, that was one
because
of the ones on my list.
yeah, so yeah, just they have always been seen as, you know, especially in like Catholicism and Christianity and everything, you have the idea that if the devil took over a snake, then the snake's an evil animal, and because the snake told Adam and Eve to bite the apple, and you know that created sin, and now here we are, you know, however many years later, and now sin exists. And so I think there's this bad reputation. But then also, just if you look at historically the depictions of serpents and dragons, they're always these big intimidating creatures.
Right.
But what I like to share with people, and a lot of people don't realize, especially especially even a lot of Christians, is that like the reason why Lucifer or the devil took over a snake was because a snake is innocent. It has no legs, no arms, no way to hurt. And so if a snake was genuinely evil and the scariest thing ever, Adam and Eve would have never gone and talked to the snake, right?
It's true. It's a good
There's no
point.
way they would have. So that's why he
Right.
took
They'd
over
have
a
been like,
snake. Exactly. Like if the devil took over a lion, Adam and Eve are like, nope, get that. I'm not talking to this lion, right? But the devil took over an animal that was harmless, no legs, no hands, no way to harm them. So yeah, that's why I think so. I think just culturally because of religion, and yeah. But what's the other reason you have?
so religion was one, and then the other one was the media, which in a sense that's what you're saying. It's just kind of like culturally and just kind of the cultural depiction um, of snakes and serpents and things of that nature. So just same thing pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most folks that I've met that are like definitely afraid of snakes, and I'm not that far removed from like not being a reptile keeper and not having any experience with snakes. So I know how it is. I didn't know, but I was always taught snakes aren't bad. Snakes aren't good. I'm sorry, snakes aren't good.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it was just kind of always something that just immediately you write it off. You don't want to deal with snakes. But then once you start working with snakes and you start seeing like reptiles and just the different personality traits of snakes, the different species of snakes, how some are different than others, and like you realize that it's this whole world of things that you never really gave a chance before. And
Yeah.
so once you can kind of remove that mental block and give it that chance,
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes like this entirely different experience, and you look at it, everything totally different. But like I said, I'm not that far removed from being in that other world, right? And growing up, I was always taught be afraid of snakes. I was taught that from religion. I was taught that in the media. I was taught that culturally, just from everybody else who was taught those same lessons. And it's just like it's a bad rap. So it's good to have people who are motivated to teach folks about snakes and reptiles in general and not having that fear. So that's a pretty cool goal. I like that you said that.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, that's why you were mentioning just like how great they are actually when you get to hold them. And I think that's why I was gravitated towards retics, just holding retics and getting to handle them and work with them. It wasn't like any of the other snakes I kept growing up. I felt like they were observing me as much as I was observing them.
Yeah. And so I remember the first time I held a snake, and we've only been keeping for about almost 2.5 years now.
Okay.
So not long at all. And I still remember my very first
And you got
experience
that
holding a
many
snake.
snakes and racks behind you?
All of them aren't full though, full
Okay.
disclosure. But yeah, I remember the first time holding a snake, and I didn't really know what to expect. I knew it wasn't going to be like kind of what was in my head. Are they going to be slimy? It was going to be weird. I knew it wasn't going to be that, but I didn't quite know what to expect. So I still remember like that feeling of like first holding the snake and just kind of how it felt in my hand. It wasn't any. It was, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was just cool, like feeling the scales and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. Um, I'm so glad we got into this hobby though. My wife and I, like I said, we weren't really into snakes before. It took a little bit of convincing to kind of get her on board, but like now she's like fully on board. Like there would be no Herp Collectors without Takara because like she helps with everything. Like she's helping with cleaning. Like we're talking, we're bouncing ideas back and forth off of each other. We're comparing favorites on Morph Market that we've saved. So like it's so fun. Like
Awesome.
It's really fun.
That's really awesome. It's funny how there's always a little bit of resistance at first, right?
Right.
But yeah, I remember when like every time that someone holds a snake for the first time and it's one of mine or you know, they haven't held a snake before and I'm with them during that experience, you know, everyone's always shocked to like they're smooth, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're smooth and they feel very dense in your hand and it's something that people don't normally expect. A lot of
you feel the muscles moving.
Right. I've had people ask me, are the scales going to cut me? I'm like, no, do the scales look like they're going to cut you?
Hey, but sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Like it's just, oh, the scales are going to cut me.
I'm still alive. Why would I have them? No, I guess that's not.
The first time I heard that one.
Yeah, I guess that's not true though. I know monitor keepers love to hold their monitors, and I see these big croc monitors climbing on people, and I'm just like, how are you dealing with those claws, like, just like ripping at you?
That's funny. Keisha, what's up? Thanks for coming out. Great interview tonight. Stan, what's up? Thanks for coming out, bro. So what are some things that reptile keeping has taught you about yourself?
Okay, so one big thing that keeping reptiles has taught me is really the art of true confidence and relaxation. Like, so with retics, they read you. They read you up and down. And it's one thing to, so little backstory real quick. So I bought my first retic, a Coyote. And then I decided, like, after I bought that Coyote, you know, what's arguably known as a smaller medium locality retic, I got a mainland male. And then I was like, you know what? I want to breed, and I was able to get an amazing deal on a wild caught pair of Kalatoa Superdorf retics, and it's like a once in a lifetime chance that you can get a wild caught pair, and so I got them. And for anybody listening, I don't recommend, if you've only been keeping retics for 2 years, don't get a wild caught animal. I learned as much in that first 6 months owning them that I did the prior 2.5 years of owning retics. And one thing that it told me is that I can tell myself, stay cool, be calm, you're good. That wasn't enough to actually stay cool, be calm, and feel good. Because they really do read everything. And when you are nervous, they sense that. And so they really taught me just to read their body language and be patient. Patience is one thing, especially if you get into breeding. It's not always going to go good. I got these wild caught animals, and my first year was a complete bust. I ended up with only one baby surviving, which was still a great accomplishment for wild caught animals. And it's a new bloodline of Kalatoa. So
was it just that one clutch?
Yeah, that was the only snake that I paired. That was the first time I've ever bred anything in my entire life, and it happened to be wild caught Kalatoa retics.
Okay, so you just hopped right in the deep end.
Yeah, hopped right in the deep end, and she laid 28 pearly, beautiful whites. Most of them were not fertile. I had some temperature issues on my end, and then we had that huge Texas winter storm that knocked out my power for 18 hours. My house got to like 40 degrees. If it wasn't for me finding a generator last minute in 6 inches of snow in Texas, which no one ever hears of, my most of my collection probably would have died. It got that cold.
That was 2021?
2020.
2020? Okay.
Wait, hold up. That was 2021. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. February.
Yeah, I remember hearing all the stuff about Texas and like unfortunately hearing some very sad stories from some keepers about losing animals and things of that nature. So yeah, that's rough. Um it's,
Yeah, and so like patience, right? Like, so I had this beautiful pearly white, and then just little by little eggs started knocking off, and then I ended up only with one baby. Very disappointing, and so it taught me patience, and it taught me just kind of that stick to itiveness mindset. Like, don't let the failures,
right.
you know, get you down, because if I would have done that the first year, I wouldn't be still breeding. And I mean, it's taught me a lot about genetics, right? Like Punnett squares. Like
Yeah.
like I
I had to
talk.
brush off my genetics and what I learned in high school.
I literally I talk to people about snakes, and I forget like this is like really complex stuff to like layman people that don't know about snakes. But I'm like, yeah, it's het for this, and they're like, what's het? And I was like, oh, heterozygous, and they're like,
Was
what?
heterozygous.
And I'm like, it's a gene that's not expressed visually, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like,
What do
right.
you mean when you
Right,
say those words?
right. So but yeah, and on top of that, it really just taught me that man, I just, now that I'm just reflecting on it, is if you have a passion about something as a kid, don't ever let that candle go out. I almost did. Like, I almost, like, after college baseball, I almost was like, why get back into them? Because when I was young, and before I went to college, I had a spider ball python. I had a pastel. I was ready to make like bumblebees. I was super excited. And that was back when they weren't even that. That was 2011. Like, they were
Yeah, that was back
popular
before
back
people
then.
were
But
hating on spiders like that.
right, exactly. Yeah, because nowadays, if I was breeding ball pythons, I probably wouldn't get a spider in my collection. But I loved them at the time, and I still do. I still think they're one of the best visual codoms.
100%.
But so yeah, I almost let that candle burn out, and I'm happy that I didn't. And yeah, so they taught me a lot about myself, and also taught me just how big of a nerd I am.
Yeah, getting your head wrapped around the genetics is tough at first, and then speaking with people about the genetics when they're not exposed to that world, that's tough too. But that's always fun too, in a way, just to kind of like break it down. I don't think folks always understand it when you explain it, but you start like it's kind of like just chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, and the more and more you get exposed to it, then you finally have like this good understanding of it. But yeah, that was one of the hardest things to for me to get my head wrapped around at first too, was like the genetics. But once you kind of understand like the fundamentals, it's just like anything. Once you understand the fundamentals,
Yep.
then you can start going out. You can branch. It's just like with baseball. If you understand the fundamentals of baseball, then you can build on that. But the first thing you got to do is understand the fundamentals. And so with breeding, one of those fundamental lessons and fundamental things you got to understand is how the genetics work.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And it's crazy because I can't. People ask me all the time, like, how long did it take for you to actually start being able to recognize and identify like morphs, and like, understand like what you get when you pair this and you pair that. And I really don't have an answer for that. It's like one day I didn't know, and I felt like the next day like I knew. Like, it was, and not to say that it happened overnight. It took many years to finally get to
Yeah.
what I know now. But plus just a lot of help from amazing mentors and other people. Just a lot of people talk about the negativity in the ball python community, the retic community, all these different communities. But at the same time, it's like, if you choose to focus on the negative aspects of the community, yeah, it's a negative community.
Right.
But if you actually focus on the positive and you build a good support group and system around you, I mean, I love the retic community. It's fun.
Absolutely. Like
Just fun.
it's what you focus on. Like, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? You can choose to focus on the glass being half empty, or you can choose to focus on it being half full. I'm one of those type of people who I'd rather focus on it being half full, right?
Exactly. There's always going to be sour grapes and apples in every community, but if just don't associate around them, and you'll be good.
100%, 100%. So you spoke about mentors. Who were some of your mentors?
Yeah. So Man, a lot of these guys that I'm probably going to mention, I used to blow up, and even today will still ask them questions over and over because I'm a true believer you never stop learning. But when I first got into retics, the very first person that took me under his wing, over 20, 30 years experience was Samson Pruitt of Slither Inc.
Okay. Okay.
Or Slither Exotics now. I know he's a very controversial individual, but at the end of the day, the guy knows what he's doing with retics. The guy's been breeding for a long time. He knows the fundamentals as good as anybody else. And to be honest, he never made me feel uncomfortable to reach out to him. And this was even before. So like I started keeping retics in 2018 and early 2018. And I started talking to him in 2015. The guy put 3 years into me before I even bought my first animal.
Yeah,
that's a
significant investment.
Yeah, so I thank him a lot for that. And then I've known Garrett Hartle now for about 2.5, 3 years, and talked to him frequently. He's been a huge help for me. I was just texting him earlier today, bugging him again, asking him about some breeding stuff. Aubrey Pruitt, that's the shirt I'm repping right here. A&B Exotics. He's the Ocelot King.
A&B Exotics?
Yeah, A&B Exotics.
Okay.
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar, even though I doubt it, but Garrett Hartle with Reach Out Reptiles.
Yeah, Reach Out Reptiles, yeah. Garrett's cool.
And more recently,
and I love what he's doing with US Art, like dedicating
right?
so much time to helping US Art and helping them with their social media presence. That's dope.
And what
That's
a lot of people don't realize is that he's taken a big chunk of his income from what he generates on his own social media platforms and what he does with his own stuff to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Talk about giving back.
Yeah, exactly. And then more recently over the last year, Rodney Bolich with R&B Reptiles.
Okay.
He's the Ternate King. He's the one who's got all the Ternate localities. He's been a great help and great assistance with me. And I mean, that group just keeps expanding. I'm a big believer. There's a lot of old school breeders out there that will say, listen to one person and listen to what they say and go to them for things. But I'm more of I'm going to ask 5 really knowledgeable old school people the same question. I'm going to get all their answers, and then I might pick one of those answers or do a combination of them to see what works.
Exactly.
And then form my own observation, hypothesis, opinion on what I'm seeing and what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So those 4 or 5 are probably the ones that have shaped me the most. I see a comment saying, so Slither, huh? See, so yeah, there's a lot of controversy around. Slither and his past and whatnot. But yeah, at the end of the day, the guy's been breeding retics for 30 years, and if you're asking him questions like humidity, husbandry, how to breed, how to do all that, I mean, the guy's got just as much experience as the goats out there, as Kevin McCurley and all those people that's been doing this since 80s, 90s. So yeah. Do you mind?
As I say, your approach is similar to mine. And I don't just take this approach like with reptiles. I try to take it with everything that I do, in terms of when I'm trying to learn, and that's always because I never stop learning with anything that I do. I always want to like grow and advance, but pulling things from multiple people, because you can pull things from like the goat, and then you can pull something from someone who just started. And so it's kind of seeing some things that resonate with you, that make sense, that are smart to do, and then just kind of applying that. And maybe you don't do it exactly like that person do it. Maybe you put your own spin on it, or you slap your own swag on it, whatever. But pulling from those multiple resources, like I feel like that's what I've done, like with just anything in life. Like I see people who are really good at something that I want to be really good at, and I pull from them. Or I see somebody that does something in the same space that I'm working in as well, regardless of experience or tenure or anything like that, but it's really working, then I pull from that. And just that's kind of how you are. And so that's why that's one of the things that makes me want to like surround myself with like good people and people that are doing like good things, because I don't want to be pulling stuff from bad people. No one wants to do that.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to just building your foundation, it's good to, so you mentioned like even people who've been doing this a little bit longer. My good buddy of mine, Nathan Katz with Katz Reptiles, you know, he's my he's a co-host to the podcast that we're about to drop.
Every time you say his name, and I want to get on the podcast too in just a second, but every time you say his name, I think Stephen Katz, that breeds carpets, but it's not the same guy.
No.
It's the first person that comes to my mind when you say that.
So he told me in one of our episodes he covered and he talked about advice that Garrett Hartle gave him, but it's so important. Find someone that you can get close with that's like 2 years ahead of where you are, and really hit them up for all the breeding and all the questions and all of that, because it's fresh on their mind. They're not
That's a good point.
And they're not nearly as busy as the big breeders. They're not nearly as occupied as they are, and they're going to have more time to to spend with helping you, and the struggles and issues that you're going to go through. You know, they're only 2 years ahead of you, so more than likely they've gone through that recently, right? So
that's a good point.
I thought that was really good advice. I loved hearing Nathan say that.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, I wanted to, if it's okay with you, I want to address a question that I saw up here.
Yeah, sure. Which question was it? I'll pull it up if I can find it.
What words of wisdom do you have for people getting into retics / superdorfs?
All right, you can go in and answer it. I don't see it, but I'm half blind too. I don't got my glasses on.
It was at 725, if that helps. Don't know if that helps, but
okay, so 825 on my side.
So I guess words of wisdom would be number one. Okay, so I'll answer this in like a two-part. The first part is, if you're getting into retics, words of wisdom, not superdorfs, but retics in general. Okay, words of wisdom would be to start with a hatchling and grow with it. Before you get into it, see if you can find a mentor that you can handle one beforehand to know. I did not do that, but I wish I would have. I wish I had someone local that had retics that I could actually hold them and be able to handle them and get that experience. But at the end of the day, words of wisdom. So like, don't get complacent with retics, even as babies, because they will have bad days. It's a lot different than a ball python, where for the most part with keeping ball pythons, you can open up the rack, you can just pick them up, and they might get defensive and they might nip you, right? But you can pick them up, you can do your spot cleans, you can change the bedding, and then you put them right back in. It's in and out each drawer. With retics, man, they really will just hone in on you, and your energy is everything. And so don't ever get complacent and overconfident with an animal. And just know what you're getting into in terms of keeping retics in size. Now, this is also going to go into my words of wisdom with superdorfs. And I say quotations because I don't like the words superdorf and dwarf. I don't.
Why is that?
It was a marketing term that was used, and so that's what they were called, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and here's the word of wisdom and why I don't like that term. And not that I dislike anybody who uses that term, like, it doesn't mean anything, but so like, what do you think of when you hear the word superdorf?
You think it's gonna be really small,
right? Like, it's gonna be really small, and so you got to realize that what we're doing is that we're using that term to describe the longest snake in the world. So it's a complete oxymoron, and it's kind of dumb, because at the end of the day, a pure Kalatoa locality, which is a small island reticulated python, that's what I'm trying to move towards, is small island, medium island, large island.
Okay.
And I know it's boring. It's not sexy like super dwarf or dwarf, which is why no one's ever going to call them small, medium, and large, right? I'll try to make up my own cool term, but for now, small, medium, large. But the thing is that even a pure Kalatoa, I don't care what anybody tells you, because I literally have a wild caught in my garage right now that's 9.5 feet. And that's a Kalatoa that people are normally expecting these animals to be 6 foot fully grown. And it's
This is
like
9.5 feet already.
I mean, she's a wild caught. She's 12, 13 years old.
Okay.
But what a lot of people do is they say, okay, I have an adult Kalatoa for sale. She's had one clutch. She is 5 years old. She's for sale, and she's 6.5 or 7 feet. You know what? You're right. She's a very small retic, but she's 5, 6 years old. That snake's gonna grow a lot more over the next 10 years. And so yes, you can get them to breed at 1,800 grams. That's tiny.
Really?
Yeah, Garrett Hartle's done it.
Yeah, I didn't realize they bred that small for like a retic.
Yeah,
Because I
they
mean, that's
can.
ball python weight.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And that's Garrett's whole goal, which is amazing, is to try to get these to be micro-sized. But at the end of the day, your Kalatoa female, which is a small island, aka super dwarf reticulated python, is going to get generally 8 to 10 feet with a normal standard bloodline. Now, there are really tiny bloodlines that are out there, but those are wild. Most of them are wild caught animals. And so when you own one animal from a wild caught clutch, you don't know what the size variation was of all the other babies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, it's one of those things where my word of wisdom is like, do your best to, if you're looking for a small retic and you want to get into super dwarf, damn it, I said the word super dwarf, and you want to get into super dwarf retics, do your best to, if you want a tiny animal, do your best to spend the money to get that animal, but just be prepared for that animal to be maybe 2 feet, 3 feet longer than you expected. If you're expecting a 6 foot animal, just prepare for a 9 foot animal. Just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah, and don't try to manipulate its size by feeding it way less. Don't do that. I know a lot of people out there that are doing that right now. I see 2-year-old retics that are literally like 3 feet long, and I'm like, no, that's not okay. So yeah, that's my way. I mean, words of wisdom, more like paragraphs of wisdom, but there they are.
So clutch wise,
Mm-hmm.
you had the one clutch in 2021. Have you had any clutches in 2022?
So I bred that same wild caught pairing together, and they hatched February. Wait, was it February? Yeah, February 2022 this year.
Okay.
And right now the rest of my collection is getting. So right now the very first snake I got, that Kayawati locality retic, she actually just ovulated.
Nice.
Which is huge. I'm excited to make pure Kayawatis.
He's fed about 25 eggs or
so. She's a first timer. Her sister, a buddy of mine, Brian, owns, and on her first clutch she had 22.
22. Okay.
Yeah. So, and they're about roughly the same size. Yeah. So she's gravid. And then my Solaire medium locality, dwarf locality, she's not eating right now, and my Kalatoa is they both just denied 2 meals in a row, which is completely unlike a retic. So that is where I am. So they might be going for me this year, and then I also have a Philippine female that's 4 years old that she can more than likely go this year, and then probably early in 2023 I'll have Ternate. So I have 7 localities right now.
7 localities? Okay. So have you put much thought into like how you will sell them? Because like when I think about it from a ball python perspective, and I'm like, that's kind of like my frame of reference, right? And so like in my mind, like while you should make sure, or while you would want like anyone who buys any animal to have like proper understanding of husbandry, to have the finances available to take care of the animal, to be in a stable situation to where things aren't just going to go like off the rails and they can't take care of the animals. So you want, in theory, you want all those things to be in place. But when you start like when you go like toe to toe putting the ball python versus a retic, I feel like with the retic the stakes are higher than with the ball python. So have you put any kind of like thought into like vetting customers or kind of like
I do.
what your process will be?
I do. So, fortunately, the clutch that I got to sell this year sold. I sold them within 6 weeks. They sold really quick, and fortunately for me, a lot of the people that bought them were people that I know really well. And so the people that I did not know well, I always ask, "Have you had retics before?" If you haven't had retics before, I tell them to like, "What do you know about them?" Right? And I have a general conversation. But then I also ask them like, do you have the enclosure for it? Do you have a thermostat? And I make them tell me like, what kind of thermostat do you use? What are you planning
Okay,
on housing it in? Like, I don't make it in a way where I'm questioning them. It's like just having a general conversation and
that
just like
makes
getting.
sense.
I want to get to know my buyers because I cannot thank the people who support my small business enough. And like, if you're gonna buy from me, I don't want it to be like a one-time exchange and then see ya. Like, let's talk. Like, like
Right.
so I wanna know like how long you've been keeping snakes, like and so, yeah, I won't ever release a retic without getting any sense of idea of what someone's experience is because the truth of the matter is that retics are probably the number one. You like how I said that, the truth, and then I said probably. Um, so the truth is the maybe truth is that retics are probably one of the most neglected and like rehomed snakes out there.
Yeah, that
And
makes
so
sense. And
so I
that's part of what I mean, like in terms of like the stakes being higher. Like I feel like you can make a mistake with the ball python, right? In reading the body language and things like that. And I mean, worst case scenario, you get this little pinprick on you or whatever, right? There's not a lot of like in terms of risk, there's not a lot of downside in terms of like the things that can happen in terms of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, but with a retic, if someone doesn't have the experience, they're neglecting the animal. They're not investing significant time into making sure the animal's comfortable with them, and they don't learn things about the retic. Then it can go like really bad really quickly, right?
yeah,
Or
for those of you that have not like ever seen a retic in food mode, yeah, that was my first surprise. So like I kept retics for only 2 years, and the snake that I had for 2 years is known to be a small slash medium locality snake. So she was maybe like 4 or 5 feet. And then I decided to get wild caught animals, and I was like, oh, this is for real, for real. Like I was like, okay, so you guys, when you eat, you want to eat me. So
oh, you want to eat?
right. so so yeah, it's one of those things where like, yeah, it's intense. So yeah, the stakes are higher. You're I don't think people realize like a 7-8 foot retic suspended on your neck. Um, if it decides to want to curl around and constrict, you're in trouble. I'm not saying it's gonna kill you, but they are strong
It's
and
not a good day.
no, so like I'll hold my snakes out in front, and the bigger ones I'll put over my shoulder. And when they come around to this side, I always have my hand by their face, and I'm always tapping their head if they ever tried to come this way, right? And I'm always making sure that they got a good distance from me. But yeah, the stakes are definitely higher. But I also think that from my experience, because I want to ask you some questions about ball pythons later.
Okay.
But there was something about just owning a retic that I felt was more rewarding than owning a ball python, just because it is a lot of work to learn your animal and to get that trusting like when I moved all my snakes into my garage and I redid my garage and I'm running ambient temps,
Hmm.
my wild caught retic turned into a whole other animal, and she became amazing because my confidence level grew. She was in an environment that I think that she prefers more.
Okay.
Got her a bigger enclosure, and now me and a wild caught reticulated python are like this.
And
We're
that's
so
got to be rewarding as hell.
no,
Like
that's what I'm
to go
saying.
from where you started to where you are, that's got to be super rewarding.
It's yeah, and it's been like in the last 6 months where it's been a complete just change. And I mean, even when I pulled her clutch. She didn't strike at me once. I
Oh,
was like, what?
nice. Yeah,
Right? So,
that's definitely a
um,
lot.
she bluffed, but she didn't open her mouth.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
that's progress.
No, 100%. So me and her are chill now. But when I first got her, man, I'm not gonna lie. My first 6 months, I was nervous. I was sketchy with her, and therefore she was sketchy with me. And it was not enjoyable for the first 6 months. But
It
we
was this random sketchy guy.
right, exactly. Um,
So there was a question real quick. I don't want to get too far removed from it, but I think they're probably talking about the super dwarfs, based on the time, like 842. So on average, are they still smaller than the other island retics?
okay, are we talking about? This is from Celtic Balls. Are you talking about Ternate Islands? Because I think everyone was nerding out about them up there. Like I like them as well. So if we're talking about Ternate Island retics and whether they are smaller than other locality islands. Um, so Ternate Islands, the reason why some people don't call them dwarfs is because you got to remember that dwarf and super dwarf are marketing terms. They are marketing terms used to describe the islands that are south of Sulawesi that are part of those small island chains, because that those are what were being imported. So historically speaking, the dwarfs were Jampea, Salayer, and arguably Kaiwati. I have my own thoughts about Kaiwati, but and arguably Kaiwati. And then there are the Superdorf Islands that are Madu, Karampa, Kalatoa, and there's Tombalongan that UK calls them Superdorfs. We don't have enough of them in this country to really, disagree with that statement, but Superdorf, whatever. So Ternates are not considered dwarfs by a lot of people's standard because they're not part of that island chain. But what we know about Ternates is that we have 11 wild caught animals in the country. Not a single female is over 14 feet. As a matter of fact, she's, according to Ronnie, is just under 14 feet. And when you look at that 14, and that's on the large end, he has females that are wild caught breeding on their second clutch at 9 feet, which is super dwarf size, right? So, generally speaking, yes, they stay smaller. In my experience as well, I have a female that is 3 years old, and I am hitting her so hard with food, and she won't grow. She's like 7.5, 8 feet. And so, yeah, I if we're gonna use like dwarf to just describe an animal smaller than the big mainlands, yeah, I think ternates or Ternate Islands are a dwarf retic. But what I like to term them, and where I got this idea was from Rodney himself. He refers to small, medium, and large locality retics because that is a lot more accurate than dwarf. Because if you think of dwarfism, it's a genetic mutation, and that's not what's happening here. It's not a gene. It's not a dwarfism gene like you see in humans, right? This is just evolution and not having enough food on the islands in
Kind
order.
of a product of where they were, where they
Exactly.
evolved it.
Yeah. So, man, why am I so long-winded? Anyways, so yeah.
And that's great. That's great. That's great for podcasts.
So
Called content.
it's hard with me having a podcast now and having to share the space, right? um, but yeah, so with the largest specimen in this country that's wild caught being over 13 feet but under 14 feet, you have to think about how big Salayers get. My Salayer that I have she's going to be 10 years old in April next year. She's 14 feet, and she's one of the smaller ones from her clutch. They can get up to 16 feet. So if we're going to call Salayer a dwarf, I think we have enough information to see that Ternates so far are proving to be small, a medium-sized locality. But they are definitely not like Kalatoa small, Madu small, Karampa small. And I had one more thought that just left my mind, which is probably a good thing. But that's my answer. Oh, okay. So someone said I think Celtic was referring to super dwarfs in the local sense, the locality sense, maybe. Yeah. So, okay. So super dwarfs, again, marketing term to describe the snakes that originate from the islands of Kalatoa, Madu, Karampa, arguably Kaiwati, and arguably Tombalongan. And so, yeah, those snakes those islands are much smaller. Here's my theory that I've heard from other people, and none of this is stuff that like I scientifically have done. This is all information that I've gathered from dozens of keepers. And I generate my own hypothesis, and my hypothesis, it aligns with other people's, but basically these islands broke off from the mainland, however they did that, whatever the case may be, and retics, a lot of people think they swam there, whether they did or didn't, but they don't have as large prey item. There's more competition for food, and so through evolution and over time, these snakes have stayed smaller. Because they don't have a lot of livestock to eat. They don't have a lot of big prey items. And so now the product of what we get is we get these animals that are pocket size retics, quote unquote pocket size. But
big pockets.
yeah, but at the end of the day, what I want people to realize is it's still a reticulated python. So guess what? If you feed it like a mainland, it's still going to get a decent size. You're not going to, it's very rarely, and I'm talking about females. Very rarely are you going to have a female that at 10 years old is still going to be 6 feet, 7 feet. Most of a good small manageable size retic at 10 years old is 8 feet, I think.
Is it 8 feet?
8 feet, but you got to realize a lean retic at 8 feet. I have a AML. I have a 50% super dwarf AML that's 7 feet, and I can still hold them in one hand.
Gotcha. This is a good question right here, from Serpent Eclipse. So, as an industry, what do you think we need to do to move forward to not only grow, but to be taken seriously by the larger population that isn't already in the hobby? So, great question.
Yeah, that is a good question. Adler, man, you always just like enter my brain wavelengths and challenge me. Okay, so I think what we need to continue. I think what we need to do in terms of to be taken seriously by the larger population that isn't into. So, are you talking about the retic hobby or the reptile hobby? There's sorry.
Yeah,
because those are two very different answers.
So I guess answer for the reptile hobby and then for the retic hobby.
Okay,
within the bigger reptile hobby.
So what we need to do with the reptile hobby to be both. Okay, cool. So I think what we need to continue to do for
we here, bro.
Yeah. For people that are in the for non-weirdos that don't like snakes, or that aren't in the snake hobby or reptile industry, educational shows. Like I think it's a dream of mine to be able to, like, I have one daughter. She's a year and a half old, and I cannot wait until she's in school, and I get to be that dad that comes and brings huge snakes to the class to show everyone, because that's how I ended up falling in love. I remember being in first grade and seeing a huge Burmese python and was like, damn. Like,
every kid is going to remember you, and they're going to remember your daughter. They will never forget it. They'll be 80 years old.
Never forget that. And I don't give a shit if they forget about me. Sorry for my language, but I want them to remember that they saw something so cool and awesome that day. And so I think what we need to do is spread passion and love in the younger community, because that's when the seeds are planted in here, and they're not corrupted by years of living in a society that rejects snakes, right?
Absolutely.
And so if we can tackle and be able to do shows with young kids, like, that's what we really, if you have a passion and love of like really sharing your love, like, not all breeders have that. Not all breeders have that. A lot of breeders just like to breed their animals because they love them, sell their animals. They run it like a business, which is nothing wrong with that. They have a passion for them, but some people just aren't. They don't care to inspire others. They don't care to, and that's totally okay. Like, if that's not your MO, but for those of you that have that calling and that know that you have a way of communicating with people in a way that you can get them to engage, listen, and be open-minded, you have to do your due diligence to get the young people to love our animals.
Absolutely.
The more young people that we can get to love our animals, the more that we can, in the future, just spread awareness, right? Because
Right.
I don't think there's like even you said earlier talking about like I only got into snakes like 2 years ago, and just the way that you said that was like I know that's weird, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are that do this and breed now, they've liked snakes since like they were young.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a lot easier to change the mind of an innocent sweet child than it is to change a stubborn 30-year-old adult.
Absolutely. 100%.
So advocation and connecting with kids. There's a guy in the retic community that likes to lay low, Richard Bilbo. Richard Bilbo takes his snakes basically weekly to a public park. And I love seeing him upload the pictures of people that come by to see his animals. And yeah, he's had to deal with people calling authorities and people coming out and like, oh, what's going on here? But at the end of the day, if you can change one person's mind a day or even a week, you're changing 52 people's mind a year that snakes are not scary.
Right.
And so, and I mean, and on top of that, what I got to show my brother that this is a serious industry is when my brother was like an investor early on in helping me with getting the wild caught animals and everything. And I thank him. He's a big reason why I'm even doing everything now. He helped me financially, at first. And he's now reaping the benefits. And so if you want to get someone who's like not scared of snakes, but to realize that we're a legitimate thing, like, when you're making good money as a breeder, show them your tax return. Like there's money to be made breeding snakes. If you are a smart businessman, you can make money. So if you can generate revenue in a capitalistic country, what's not to be taken seriously?
100%. 100%.
And then the other question, what can we do to be taken seriously as a retic community, to show the other snake keepers and groups like Morelia, carpet pythons, ball pythons, and I really think what we need to do to be taken seriously and is really start to we need to get on the same page. We have way too many people that are trying to scam people for selling Superdorf and Dorf retics. We have way too many people that are arguing topics that are just really irrelevant, and what really sucks is that, like, what I would like to see the retic community do, especially now with the localities becoming so popular in the smaller, medium localities and even the large localities because we can't import them, people are finally appreciating them, is we need to find a way to get a way to track lineage and to start legitimizing the animals that we have, right? Because if we have a trace of where this animal came from and kept coming from, then it's going to make us look a lot more legitimate and like we know what we're doing. Like the Morelia community, who, you know, they Green
I feel
Tree
like the Morelia community is like one of the best communities at doing that.
Yeah, they're like literally on steroids of keeping records. They're like, this is evil bred to Satan, and they created they have snakes that people are like, oh my gosh, did you know about like ET946? And I'm like, what? Like, but that's the name of the snake. Like they're so on point, and so
yeah. Shout out to the Morelia community.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. And that was like my first love and passion were green tree pythons. I have yet to own one, but I read the complete chondro when I was like 14 years old. I read a book about breed. There we go, man. Yes, Greg Maxwell. That's man. I was a kid. I got to meet him once. But yeah, I read that book. And that was life-changing. That's when I was like, yeah, I do love snakes. I'm a 14-year-old who doesn't read. I play baseball, and I'm reading a book about snakes. What the hell am I doing? So, yeah, I think we just need a better way to track what we're doing, because what's really happened with retics is prior to... One thing that I really appreciate about what Reach Out Reptiles has done for the hobby is they've turned the hobby around to where it matters where your animals come from. And that's going to increase value of your animals. And so, because before, man, people were inbreeding and doing this and doing that, and no one knew anything about their animals. They only cared about having a morph. And And in the ball python community, that's okay because you guys still have new morphs coming in. You can still import morphs. Like, I cannot wait for Dave Kaufman's ball python movie to come out because he's got some amazing footage that he gave us some information back, some sneak peek information on Brian Cusco's Patreon live that I'm not going to share it because I want you guys to watch the movie and because I don't even know that much. He didn't share that much, but there's still new stuff coming in. So for you guys to be morph driven, that's what's keeping you alive and making good money. But for the Rita community, we can't.
And the fact that there's
anymore.
so many morphs out there. I mean, not just new morphs, but just so many morphs. And so mathematically, it's almost impossible to make every single morph that's possible because there's so many out there to leverage.
Yeah, and so what we do is in Rita community, now that we can't import, it's just like if you're not careful, we're going to drive ourselves out of the community because we're just going to keep inbreeding, and eventually it is going to impact the quality of the animals.
So you touched on, you mentioned the podcast a couple times, and so I had some questions about that too. So I guess first, tell us a little bit about the podcast, the kind of guests you have, and what your goals are with the podcast, and all the background for it.
Yeah, so we are doing, so me and close friend, my boy Nathan Katz.
Stephen Katz.
Not Stephen Katz, but Nathan Katz. At Katz Reptiles, we are doing a primarily, it's a reticulated, it's called the retic. Should I reveal that? I will. It's called it's called the Retic Lounge. If someone manages to create a podcast called the Retic Lounge within 2 weeks before we launch our first episode, I will find you.
Pull up.
Right, it's called the Retic Lounge, and the reason why we called it the Retic Lounge is because when I think about lounging and sitting back, I'm sitting back with like my boys and friends in a community, and so what we're really trying to do is create a community for new keepers and keepers that want to be new breeders and start to get into breeding to ride along our journey with us in learning about these animals. We don't think we're experts. We constantly are making mistakes, and we just want to have a place where newcomers can get good information, share their information on how they do things, and talk about basic keeping. And it's basically just a real life inside view of what it is to keep these animals, whether it's a super dwarf, dwarf, mainland. And so we are going to be,
so will it be you and Nathan just kind of talking, or will y'all have guests on too?
Yeah, so we have like different structures, and we're just gonna kind of do them randomly and try to have a uniform set. But we're gonna have breeding topics that me and him talk about. We're going to
I will hunt them down.
Love it. So we're gonna have breeding topics because me and him are new breeders, and so we want to discuss and talk about like breeding. We're gonna have like a husbandry series.
Okay.
We're gonna have a husbandry series where we, excuse me, where we go over basic husbandry stuff and get into more complex stuff. And then we are going to about once a month have a guest on.
Okay.
And that guest is going to be anywhere from a very experienced individual to someone who's. So what we really want to do is get the new keepers on, hear their perspective, and give them a voice. And allow them an opportunity to come on, ask questions, share who they are, be able to get some public recognition because everyone's trying to make it. It's a struggle. It's a grind, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a grind.
So we want to give them a voice, and we just want to create a community where people who want to help advance the community can do that together. So we're going to have... Man, I'm getting over a sickness, by the way. So
yeah, that was me 2-3 weeks ago. It was rough. It took me a good week or so to shake it.
I'm going on 2 weeks now. The first week I was out of commission. I didn't go to work. Wasn't doing well. I tested negative for COVID, but don't know what it was. But
I went to Pennsylvania, and nothing against the folks in Pennsylvania, but like it was a plane trip, and probably like a day after I got back, I started feeling like pretty drowsy. pretty lousy and drowsy, and it took me about a week or so to shake it. So
Yeah, I'm hoping I get over this thing real soon. But so yeah, so we are going to be having, it's a video podcast, and we're going to be uploading the video onto YouTube, but then we're also going to be just uploading audio to all major podcast platforms.
okay.
Our first interview guest was Brian Cusco. He also
Oh,
did
nice.
he did the intro and outro music for the podcast. So
Nice.
that was really fun to collaborate with him and do that. And then we're going to also have a Patreon and have some low level tiers for people to just come and be, again, part of the community. Depending on the tier, you'll get access to Zoom calls, get access to, at the very highest tier, you can get things like discounts on animals that we produce. And then, basically just, again, trying to really create a community. And I think Patreon is the place to do that.
Okay, you have a Discord associated with it too.
So we were, the thing about having a Discord is it kind of needs like a moderator. You need to make sure that like it's someone's there to kind of keep it in check. And I don't know if either of us have really time for that. But the big point of the Discord as well is to do a Q&A. So to post a Q&A so that all of our subscribers in our Patreons can ask questions that will be featured on a Q&A episode. And then also that just, it's good for content, right? Because if you see a question continue to pop up, you can do an entire segment, right? An episode.
So I will say, based on the Patreons that I'm in and the related Discords for each of those Patreons, it's not like Facebook, like, because Facebook can be like super toxic.
Yeah, no kidding.
Whereas the Patreons that I'm in, it's folks that are like trying to learn, trying to have like good energy about themselves, and they're not trying to like fuck up their name. And so I don't know if it takes that much moderation. Just
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Again, I'm all for it because the entire purpose of this is just to create a community of new keepers, new breeders to be able to learn together.
Because I've seen zero drama in Discords, and I'm trying to think like, and I've only been doing Patreons for probably a little over a year now.
Okay.
Like probably 13 or 14 months, give or take.
Yeah, I'm in
zero drama.
I'm in a few right now. I don't think I've seen any either.
But Facebook is a different story. Facebook groups, different story.
No kidding.
People aren't paying to be there, though. So
yeah, exactly.
Different energy.
So that's actually very true. And yeah, and I guess a Discord would definitely be definitely a value to give people who are going to pay. So yeah, I mean, so we're going to have Q&As from the Patreon. We're going to have interviews with people that are new and people that have been keeping, even people that aren't big on retics but maybe have one but they're ball private. So that was like Brian Cusco, right? So Brian Cusco has a handful of retics, maybe more or less, but yeah, he's not known for being a retic keeper. And so getting him on to see what his real life experience of having retics are, and like we asked him challenging questions like, you have retics, why aren't you breeding them? And so just inside stuff like that.
Okay.
And then breeding topics, husbandry 101 topics, and yeah.
So you said a couple of weeks is coming out?
That's the goal. So right now it's a pre-recorded. We'll do probably some lives. Not all of them will be live. If we do a live, it'll probably be like a live Q&A or just like
gotcha.
Live, allowing people to come in and just ask questions and things like that. But
so will there be a regular cadence for when you drop the episodes, or is this kind of like
every Friday?
Every Friday. Okay.
Every Friday. So we're my goal right here, and I'm actually, after I do this, we're going to record an episode. And I pushed for yesterday. He said, nah, let's get a couple more edited and under our belt. So I think by this point, I'm really going to push for the 30th because I want to start marketing a week out. The 29th. So we're using Riverstream FM to record. So it's very similar to StreamYard. Okay. And as a matter of fact, being on StreamYard right now, I kind of like this setup a little bit more than River. per stream. But so we're using that, and then for post edit production, we're using. I've been doing it so far. He's waiting to get an upgraded laptop in order to help out, but I am using Filmora Pro. So it does Filmora Wonderland Pro, Filmora 11. It does like.
Is it Filmora?
Filmora, Filmora.
Okay.
It does about like 85% of what Final Cut Pro and Adobe Premiere can do, but it's literally only $80 a year.
Nice.
As opposed to
How's
like
the
300.
ease of use?
It's meant for beginners.
Oh, really? Because so I've got like the Adobe Suite, not because I pay for it, but because I can log in my work login. But I use
That's a
like
hookup.
yeah, that's the hookup. So I use like Adobe, what is it called? Adobe Quick
Premiere?
something. Not the Premiere. Premiere. It is Premiere, but it's not the full. It's Premiere Rush. I just had to pull it up real quick.
Okay.
And so like that's easy, but it doesn't do a lot. Like I would say it probably does 25% of what like Premiere does, and Premiere is just like way above my head.
Yeah, I love using Filmora. I have like anything that I could ever want and need, because I'm not making a movie, right? So I don't need Final Cut Pro. I don't need Adobe Premiere, but everything I could ever want and need and more is in Filmora Pro, and it is super, super affordable and easy.
Yeah. You said it's $80 a year?
Yeah, it's $80 a year.
Oh yeah, that's not bad at all.
No,
yeah,
and they have a free version for you to mess around if you want.
Yeah. I have to look into that because, like I said, I don't need Adobe Premiere, and it's way above my head.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Adobe Cloud
is we're excited. Yeah, Adobe is something that I probably I don't know. If we get a good Patreon and I have money and I want to, fiddle around and play with it, but they don't allow you to buy it full out in a year. It's like $30 a month, and that's $30 a month.
Yeah, that's $30 a month. And I like to be good at Adobe, but I'm just not there yet.
It's a lot. Yeah. Let me see. I'm going through the comments. See if anybody asked any other.
Someone said it's free and open source for a video editor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Caden Live. Yeah, so you spoke about having a husbandry centered episode, and so that's one of the questions that I was going to ask you about, like the husbandry for your retics and kind of how you keep those, because you got about 20, and so speak a little bit about your setup and the routine with that, keeping it up to speed.
Yeah, so I used to keep my retics with a gradient, so like most people do, where you have a hot spot that's regulated by heat tape and a thermostat. But I what I decided to do when I made the money for my first clutch this year that I got to sell was I put a lot of money and I converted my garage. I re-insulated all the walls with blow foam insulation. Got a mini split, and so I have a humidifier, a dehumidifier, an air purifier, and what I'm doing is basically I'm recreating Indonesia in my garage. I don't have a single hot spot in my entire garage.
Little Indo.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have a hot spot in my entire garage, and I'm using ambient temps. So I allow a gradient from about 80 to 80.5 degrees that climbs up throughout the day to about 84.5 degrees, 85 at the most. I get notifications when my sensors are at 84.5, and then I'll flip the AC on, and then it'll start to climb back down throughout the day. And so I have these like day and night cycles of temperatures that are beautiful, and I kick up the humidity during the wet season, aka breeding season. So right now the humidity in my enclosures is about like 70%.
Okay.
And during the dry season will be about 50%.
So what kind of enclosures do you have? Do you have like PVC enclosures? Because I imagine they get too big for any kind of racks.
Yeah, so I'm doing my best to. That's going to be my next successful breeding season. I'm going to be trying to get away completely from racks. So I have hatchling racks, and I don't care what anyone says. If you're going to breed retics, good luck keeping like 60 babies in little cube enclosures because you're going to have no space. You're going to need a massive warehouse. So like baby racks are ideal for babies that are insecure feeding them. So I have a baby rack, and then I have a grow up rack. That is for holdbacks, things like that, until they get big enough to get into enclosures. But yeah, I have PVC enclosures, but what I prefer is actually ABS plastic. And I have, so my favorite and the only enclosure that I will buy moving forward, they're called jungle cages. So they come already chemically weld together. I can stand on top and jump on mine, and it does not break. It has
Nice.
it has a massive shelf on the inside of the enclosure for more enrichment, for climbing, for sitting on, for chilling. And what I didn't realize until this year is that my Coyote is using that shelf as her little. I decided to put Repti Chip up on that shelf, and I guarantee you she lays on that shelf.
Word. Okay.
So that's like their little breeding box.
So do
Their
you
lay box.
use like cocoa throughout the whole bottom of the enclosure? Because I know some people they may do like cocoa on one side and maybe like wax paper or some kind of paper on the other side. How do you set that up?
I've used just about every substrate as possible, and what I've been using lately is paper on the bottom. And the reason why is because when you start to own retics in between 8 to 14 feet, each time that they pee, you got a gallon of urine that they pee. And so, yeah, you can spot clean, but the time and effort that it takes to actually make sure that you're disinfecting when you're using a certain bedding is extremely time consuming. And so I kind of just changed my mindset in the set of like, yeah, paper is not as aesthetically appealing as Repti Chip or mulch or anything like that. But what's great about it is that I guess it's a lack of enrichment to have paper on the bottom. But what's great about it is they get enrichment because I take them out 2 to 3 times a week to clean their
Sure.
enclosure.
Good point.
And what's cool is I have an open garage where I have my snakes, and on a day where like everything is organized and put together, especially for the smaller enclosures, I can literally take them out, put them on the floor, clean their enclosure, let them knock shit down all over the place, grab them, and put them back in the cage. So yeah, I've gravitated towards paper. I think it's just more convenient, and it allows me to interact with them more. I have to be in my garage more. And if you're gonna be a breeder, the only way you're gonna be successful is if you spend time in your snake room and you know your animals, especially with retics.
Yeah.
I'll speak to retics. And
It's even that way with ball pythons. You can be a lot more successful the more you know your animals and knowing what to look for, observing your animals so you don't miss that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and the way that I do that, I keep them on paper so that I'm checking who peed and who pooped, so that way I can just take them out real quick, replace paper, wipe down. So yeah, so I all of my enclosures, every single one of my enclosures have at least one shelf. Because I like to provide them with different variations and levels, and it allows them to move around, get more exercise. And my philosophy on husbandry for them is give them the best that you can provide them, give them the biggest that you can provide them. And then if you have an occasion that your animal does not like big enclosures because some retics feel very insecure, then you take a step back and you give it a smaller enclosure.
So when the retics are feeling insecure, and again, ball pythons are kind of my frame of reference. I mean, I keep other snakes, but ball pythons primarily. When a ball python's insecure, it may be defensive, and it's probably not going to eat. Is it the same way with the retics, or is it more so they're just defensive, but they're still going to eat regardless?
Nah, they're defensive. I very, very rarely will a retic refuse food. If you have a retic that's consistently refusing food, you either have one, a female that's building follicles and going off of food and wanting to breed, or two, something's wrong with your animal. And so if your husbandry is on point, there's zero reason for a retic to not eat, in my
Gotcha.
experience.
That's what I
Um,
figured.
yeah, because I know with ball python, and what's crazy is that I kept ball pythons growing up, never had a finicky eater ever. And then now that I don't keep them, I hear about everyone talking about how much of a pain they are to get to eat sometimes.
So I don't have a bunch of finicky eaters. I don't really have any finicky eaters per se. I've had some that were finicky. Like I got one in. This has probably been like 6 or 7 months ago or something like that. But she didn't eat for the first few months she was here, and then I ended up giving her some. It's this supplement called Da Vinci supplement. I gave her the Da Vinci supplement, and then she's been eating ever since. I have had males go off of food during the breeding season here recently, but like now all of those are even back on food. So I
Okay.
don't have any that consistently don't eat.
Okay.
But it was primarily like my males during the breeding season, and then I did have that one girl when she first came. I don't know what it was, but she kills food now. Like she's you have to be careful. Like she's one of those ones that's right at the front of the tub when you open it on feeding day now.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that, yeah, that's how retics are, especially when you get into, like, I have, I would say, less than half of my retic collection, like, aren't, they're not, I would say majority of my retic collection, as soon as that door opens, like, you better have food ready. Um, and if you don't, you better have a hook. So that's the next thing about husbandry. Always have a hook. If you don't have a hook, you're owning retics. Good luck.
What kind of hook you use? Like what
A
brand?
Yeah, A.E. Stoney. Have
AE
you heard of him?
Stone. I haven't.
A.E. Stoney. I ran into them about like 4 months ago and bought a bunch of them. I'll never go back to Venom Life. I'll never go back to hooks.com or tongs.com, whatever it is. Um, they are polycarbonate hooks.
Okay.
So what they do is they stay room temp, or not room temp. They don't get cold like metal hooks. So like if for anybody that owns a retic, especially a larger retic, if you put a metal hook up to that retic skin, the first thing it does is this. It's like, that was cold. What the heck did you
Yeah.
just do? Like,
What is that, bro? Get it off me.
so these are polycarbonate, so they don't get cold. So they're really unique. They're really cool.
This
And
is
they're,
AE Stony.
yeah, A.E. Stoney. Someone asked in the comments here if I use UV for my animals. I do not. I am interested in it though. I'm actually in the process of researching. My concern, if I can get, if UV lighting does not add heat to an enclosure at all. I'm not talking about like heat, like a ceramic heat emitter or a radiant heat panel, but if they don't add temperature, I'm down. But the issue is with me keeping ambient and not a hot spot is that I'm using very good sensors to keep a very specific temperature that's within the garage. And if I'm using any lighting that creates heat inside the enclosure, my temperatures in the enclosure are going to be different than the garage. That can mess with breeding and cycling.
Gotcha. So you said you had some ball python questions?
Yeah, I have one question.
Okay.
Just a single one question.
Shoot.
Money is not an issue. That's the hypothetical here,
Okay.
because money is always an issue. But if money's not an issue, what do you think is the best turnaround investment in the ball python industry? If you were, let's say me, I don't own any ball pythons, and I told you that I want to get 3 ball pythons. Money's not an issue, but also don't be like, don't tell me to go get a $20,000 snake. Don't do that.
Okay. So I
What's
just
gonna
took like the first ones that I was thinking of off the table.
what yeah, so what's, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, yeah, I can buy a $20,000 snake, but like, is there an animal that is not as expensive as that's going to return a similar percentage?
So I would say, and this is so it's gonna you're gonna ask different people, you're gonna get different answers. I would really focus more so on projects, and when I say projects, I'm thinking more in terms of the recessives because I feel like the
That
recessives,
that's where the
yeah,
money's at.
the recessives hold their value for much longer. And
Man,
so
ball
right
python
now the
recessives
industry,
are balling.
yeah, right now the industry is trending more and more into the recessive space, whether that's double recessives, triple recessives,
I
or things
remember
like.
when a banana ball python was 25K.
I've heard those stories. I've heard those stories. And so I would say invest in a double or triple recessive project, right? And so
Desert
if you're
Ghost
not wanting to be like,
Clown.
yeah, like Desert Ghost Clown is a hot project right now. A lot of people are in it. I'm in it myself, but it's a hot project right now, and there's a lot to be done with because Clown does so much. It has so many like different reactions with so many of like the other codon genes that are out there, and so you can do a lot with Clown. And then when you stack that Desert Ghost on top of it, you're just taking it to the next level. And then Desert Ghost, it ages so well
That's my
compared
favorite
to
thing about Desert Ghost is it doesn't brown out.
yeah. And so Desert Ghost just takes your Clown projects to the next level. So I would say Desert Ghost Clown is another project, is a project that's really cool. Hypo Clown is a project that's really cool. A lot of people sleep on Hypo. Um, it gets a lot of hate from some people, but Hypo is a really dope gene, and those animals age well too. And then one of my favorite projects right now is the Ultramale Clown project. I would say get into Ultramale Clown. I really like what Ultramale Clown does. Um,
Ultramil just has this nice, beautiful, like
it
creamy, silky look to
exactly,
it.
exactly, and just like the sweet colors, and then you throw in like dark codoms and stuff, and so like just makes those purples even darker. And so what I want to do is I want to get Desert Ghost into the Ultramel Clown project, and so that'll be like a triple recessive. So
Yeah.
those are the projects that I'm focusing on right now the most. A little bit of Pied Clown, but Pied Clown is it's secondary to those other three projects, I would say.
It's crazy how prevalent pied still is in ball
Yeah.
pythons. It's been around forever.
It's such an eye-catching animal,
It
right?
really
So
is.
for especially for non-snake people, right? Like I've got people that are terrified of snakes that I know that see the pieds, and then next thing you know, they're in my DMs, like, and they always preface it with, "I don't like snakes, but that's a really nice snake."
Yep. Yep. No, I agree. And one thing that I can't stand hearing this, but people are always like, man, the ball python market is dying. The ball python market is dead. And I'm like, you need to wake up.
Not at all.
You need to, like, ball pythons are hotter now than they ever have been. And I mean, I've never seen the ball python market like go down. Like it's a steady just increase. Now I've seen markets on individual morphs, like we talk about banana now, where if you go to any given show on a Sunday, you could probably get a banana for $125.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to recessives, man, like one thing that I just appreciate so much about the ball python community that isn't that you don't see in the retic community is that people in the ball python community, they see the smallest, slightest change. They selectively breed for a different trait, and then they're able to come up with a new morph. Whereas retic people don't do that. That's just now people are starting to get into selectively breeding for secondary and polygenic traits. People didn't do that back then.
Oh,
And
really?
like ball python breeders have been doing that since like the 90s. They're like, oh, that alien head looks different. Let me just like try to enhance that alien head to look different, and now they have a new morph. It's like,
Right.
what?
And that's how you get like different lines of specific
Right.
morphs that are just like that pop so much more than other people's lines. Like Barnhart Black Pastel is one that I can think of right off the top of my head, or Ellisar
Exactly.
Fire is another one. Like it just has a whole different pop to it.
Yeah. I lied. I got one more question.
Go ahead.
Do exanthic ball pythons end up just like becoming dull as adults and lame?
So I don't own any Axanthics. I've seen pictures of adult Axanthics, and they seem to be pretty browned out, but I can't speak from like any hands-on experience.
Okay.
But this is just
Because they
solely
look
based off
phenomenal
pictures
as
I've seen.
babies.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But
I'm
then I've
scared that they
seen like,
would brown out.
yeah, I've seen Axanthic adults, and not to hate on Axanthic people, so don't take this as a dig. But I've seen like axanthic adults that were like super brown that it was just like not into it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
Eric,
like axanthic, but I'm trying to limit my recessives.
yeah, I get that.
DG Axanthic Clown. I don't know if you saw the one that Justin produced, but that's really, really, really nice.
I got to look at it.
Yeah, so some people in the chat say it depends on the line of the Axanthic,
Eric also
and
said
the
so much.
different lines vary, and some hold their silver more.
I Yeah, and I'm sure that that's definitely true. And again, that just goes from selectively breeding, right? And so I like the comment that Eric made. He said, "So many new genetics that I've yet to be mixed into a lot still." And
Yeah, yeah,
that's the amazing thing about the ball python industry. Me, that I don't own one, I can literally go and buy 3 animals and make a world's first. Right? Like
right.
that's the crazy thing about ball pythons. There's so many opportunities.
The
And
mathematics of it is just crazy, and that's even factoring into like genetics that you can't pair together because of deformities and being a lethal pairing. But even taking all that out of the equation, the mathematics are still crazy, and there's just so much out there to
yeah,
make. And then combine when you think about finding new genes and then just stacking your recessives and just all the different things that you can do, it's just so much to do, and it's like you're chasing, and so that makes it like super exciting, I think.
no, it's great. And what I love about ball python breeders, they're very, very selective and specific and method. Like they're methodic. They're very calculated. Where I can't tell you how many people are just like, I'm gonna buy a retic and put it with my other retic, and I'm gonna make retics. Maybe there's ball python breeders like that too. Maybe I'm just being a negative person, but I do see a lot of people just killing the ball python game, and I have so much respect for the ball python game. They're really they're setting the example on how to make an industry thrive.
So this animal doesn't exist, I don't think, but I would love to see what a and I'm not giving away like all the things I'm working on, but I would love to see a black pastel leopard spot nose confusion ultra male clown.
You lost me at like the third one, but I'm with you.
Or any black pastel confusion ultra male clown combo. I think that would be so dope.
Yeah, so I know a lot of the individual animals when it comes to the individual morphs, but when it comes to combining them, have zero clue what they look like.
Yeah.
But
It's so much to keep up with, and trust me, I'm still like very much so a novice in this space, and I'm learning every day. But like you said, knowing the individual morphs, but then once you start combining them, then it gets a little tougher. And there's some like combos that you're more familiar with that you see or you've worked with or you know people who work with it that you can like quickly pick up on. But then there's others, whether it's one that hasn't been made much or one that kind of reacts differently, kind of based on like the characteristics of that genetics. And so sometimes it's just hard. And so one of the terms that Ozzy has kind of coined is like theoretical IDs, because a lot of times you're making your best educated guess as to what's in it, kind of based on your experience, based on what you know about how these different genetics interact with each other. But it's hard to be 100% certain when this is the first time that the world has even seen this, right? And so you
100%,
got to do your best.
100%.
There's a big conversation going on right now about genetic testing. So that's ramping up, and so I don't know how far we're out. We could be 1 year from it, 2 years from it, 3 years from it. There's
Which
already some recessives that they can test for,
that would be
but
game
at
changing.
some point it's probably going to be fairly commonplace. And so
So
there was
again, just the ball python community redefining and taking the industry to just another level. Like
yeah,
people sleep on the amazing things the ball python community do. Like, and I say that coming from the retic community because there's so many big-headed balloon people in the retic community that are like, I keep retics, I keep big animals. You guys keep pet rocks, and it's like, okay, like listen, they're literally doing
so have
things
you seen the
correctly.
tank job I put on this pet rock, and if you see the ROI on these rocks?
That's exactly what I'm saying. So no, that I cannot wait for that. I think we're also working on that on the back end here with retics as well, but it's going to be a lot longer.
Yeah. But yeah, that's cool. That's actually really exciting, and it's cool that you're thinking that way, and you're kind of like thinking outside of the box, and kind of what you can pull from these other species and the breeders in those particular hobbies, and apply to what you're doing. So that's a good way to think about it.
We have to. It's the only way we're going to get better and the only way we're going to grow. If we stay within our own community, we can only hit a certain level. And I think the retail community has already hit that level. And there have been people that have now just started to grow and take the retics to a different level once the super dwarf and dwarf stuff started to become popular. Someone asked a question that I love being asked, and I think you popped it up here on the chat. It was like, if money was not an issue, what would your dream animal be?
Yeah, I saw that one. I don't know that I answered it, or maybe that was the question that I was responding to when I was talking about the black pastel confusion ultra male clown combos.
Okay, can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Black pastel confusion. No, I'm joking. All right, so, like my dream animal, if money was not an issue, would be two of them. And yeah, genetics nerd. Forward genetics, definitely the best option. So mine would be, so if money was not an issue, because if I wanted to get my dream snake right now, I could literally buy it right now. It's a green anaconda. But
nice.
But I don't want to do the minimum for that animal. I want to get that animal a walk-in with a water reservoir that I could drain and pump through and clean out, and like just really do that. I want a massive rock wall with a waterfall going into it that has a big water reservoir where it still has plenty of land. Man, that will happen in my lifetime. I'm committed to doing that.
So like in Florida, as I'm sure you know, there's a lot of animals that are banned, and then we got like just this crazy guy who heads up FWC here, and he's just wow. But are there any animals banned in Texas?
I'm sure there are, but if there are, I'm more than so. I don't quote me. This is not a fact, but when I was going through the paperwork, because in order to keep retics and to keep a lot of species, in Texas, you need to have a permit.
Okay.
But the permit is literally, you go to Walmart, you go to the back of Walmart to where they sell the guns and the rifles, and you ask for an exotic species permit, and they give it to you. And there's a keepers and there's a commercial permit.
Okay.
And what that does is that anytime that you sell an animal, you just need to document it, so that anytime if you're ever questioned about it, you have trace of where you're sending it to and all that stuff. And to me, Texas does that. That's a good thing to do. A lot of people are like, freedom of keeping these animals. But it's like, no, because at the end of the day, like, some people are stupid and neglectful. So for a state to say that, like, nah, we're going to just keep a tiny little eye on you, but just to make sure that you guys are doing things and we have like a standard, I think that's not a bad thing. I think it's a terrible thing for the federal government to say you can't have any of these animals. But at the end of the day, like, to have a little bit of regulation to make sure that, like, the right people are going to own these animals, because there are requirements. You need to keep a lock on the door. If you're going to sell them, you need to have an exchange, and you need to submit it annually who you're selling your animals to. But I'm pretty sure any animals that are not permitted to keep as pets are local endangered animals.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but everything else, like, I can keep an anaconda, I can keep a boa, I can keep a Burmese, I can keep an African rock, I just can't keep wildlife that's in Texas that is threatened or endangered.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I mean, if you allow folks to keep that wildlife, like, in the wild, like, people are going to be taking them from the wild, and then that just endangers them even more. It makes their likelihood for survival like even less likely. So that makes perfect sense.
Exactly. So yeah, that would be my dream animal, and something, like I said, I can literally go and buy an anaconda and have it next week. But I don't want to own. People don't really realize how aquatic anacondas are. And I don't bash people for the way that they're keeping them now. Listen, I'm not one to I'm not judgmental with people that keep their animals the way that they do, and they're a little bit old school. They keep them in smaller enclosures. What I am trying to do is encourage new keepers and also encourage those old breeders to try to think outside the box and just try to provide the best that you can for your animals. Even if that means cutting your 500 animal collection down to 300. Like, just like try to do the best that you absolutely can, which is why I know I have that kind of setup and I'm ready to provide it with like the most, like, again, excuse my language, badass enclosure ever.
Hey, you can cut up here too. I should address that like in the housekeeping stuff, but feel free. It's funny because when you set up the YouTube videos, there's this option that says, "Is this for kids?" or
Yeah.
"This is not for kids."
Like you have
or
to hit
whatever.
like
Yeah, I always check it's not for kids because I don't want YouTube to market these videos to kids because I know what might come out my mouth. I know it might come out the guest mouth. So just this is not for kids.
Okay.
There's other conversations for kids, but
If
this
there's
ain't one
kids
of
listening, earmuffs.
them. And if the kids were like I was back in the day, they probably said half this stuff already. Anyway,
No, I'm aware. I just, for anybody listening, it's just kind of a respect thing. But yeah, I'll say every cuss word in the book. Anyways, man, so many good freaking questions.
This is a great question by Genetics Nerd. You want to hit that one first?
Yeah, let me read it. So, what's one thing about the industry that you wish would improve / change? What's one thing you are grateful for? So one thing about the industry that I wish that would improve is that, like, I don't think people realize, whether you're in the retic community, the ball python community, the green tree python community, it doesn't matter what community you're in, we're all in the same community because right now our rights are being stripped from us. Florida right now is under heavy attack. North Carolina, Raleigh, heavy attack. And this is just the beginning. And so one thing that I wish that would improve is that we all just had each other's backs and just treated each other like equals and stop having these egos that, oh, because I keep water monitors and they're harder to keep, I'm better than you that keeps the ball python. Or like they just had a conference down in Florida, or I think it's about to happen, excuse my ignorance on that, where like some of the top reptile people in the entire world are getting together in Orlando to have this massive big conference. And this is the first time ever anything has happened like that. And I'm like, why? Why is that the first time that this has happened? Like, we should be doing this. We need to find a way to all get on the same page and really just like, I mean, at the end of the day, we all have that inner child in us that well, besides you, Mike, because you got into snake 2 years ago, but we all have that inner kid in us. We all have that inner kid in us that it's all the same. We have a love and passion for these animals. So that's the one thing that I would like to see about the community change is we all start to look at each other, all breeders, all industries, all keepers. We're all on the same level. No one is better than one or another.
Yeah, I will say it feels like I'm reliving my childhood, just kind of growing in this hobby, just
right.
like getting exposure to this. So,
and
the
then
inner kid's still there. And then, what's the one thing you're grateful for?
Man, I'm grateful for way too many things, but to be honest, in this moment, super grateful for you having me on here, the opportunity to talk, hang out. I watching your videos, I was like, I need to reach out to this dude and just have a conversation because I feel like me and him could be boys.
Yeah, definitely.
And so grateful for you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Everybody in the comments, I'm grateful for all of you. You guys have been super engaging. And yeah, tonight has been awesome so far.
Absolutely, 100%. I fully concur with that. It's funny that you said what you said because like mine was going to touch on the same point. So to start with, like what could improve, what could change is what I don't like to see is like drama and people kind of going back and forth and people just like not being unified. It's not just in the reptile community, it's in any walk of life, just in general. So I do want to see more unity in that space because you're right, 100% right. Like it's not just the ball python folks. It's not just the retic folks. It's not just the berm folks. It's not just the various species of monitors and the tegus and all of that. It's everybody, because there's people out here who don't want to see any of us keeping any of these animals, and
They're
they're
trying
gonna
to take your ferrets.
right.
Like,
They're trying to take everything. I mean, it's not even just reptiles, but amphibians, birds, like just anything exotic. It's almost everything but dogs and cats. And there's groups of people who don't want you to have dogs and cats, but dogs and cat people, they got a little bit, I feel like, more power. And so it's kind of harder to fight those folks, because those are like domesticated animals, and it's just like common, but they feel like we're an easy target, and it's easy for them to play off of folks' fears and the xenophobia and things of that nature. So
yeah,
I definitely feel like we should come together. And so it's funny, because like the flip side of it is one of the things I'm grateful for. And so I'm grateful for like this community, that within our circle, I can't speak for everybody, but certainly within our circle, there's been just like crazy, 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 crazy support, hella positive energy, hella mad, good vibes, and all of that. And so it's just been so great. Like, I've never been in anything that's even come close to the positive energy that I've experience in this circle. And so
you're killing it, man.
it's wonderful. And I mean, it's everybody. I don't want to like leave anybody off, but Keys Constrictors, Lady Tiz Exotics, Reggie's Urban Jungle, Wiz Constrictors, Ebony and Ivory Reptiles, 41 South Pythons, 41 South Frenchies. I mean, it's just like everybody in the community, and I don't want to leave anybody off. So all the usual suspects, but there's just a ton of people who are showing like all kinds of support, and I've never seen anything like that. And I really and truly believe that it's going to be what kind of saves it. Like, people are going to see like these people, this group of people, like unified, working together, how all of the good energy surrounds them, and they're just going to take notice, because you can't ignore it, because it's there. It is what it is. And so that's the thing that I'm most thankful for, because I'm learning so much. I feel like I'm part of a family. It's been wonderful.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
being here and meeting new people and kind of like adding new people to that circle. I'm thankful for this opportunity to speak tonight, because if it wasn't for reptiles, if it wasn't for the show, we probably wouldn't have this opportunity to kind of kick it and talk and get to know each
Exactly.
other. So this is just like, it's super cool. There's just so many things to be thankful for. I'm one of those people who always tries to look and see, what can I be thankful for? What are the positives? Because I'd rather focus on the positive things. But I mean, there's just so many. But that's just one that just kind of stands out.
100%. Appreciate you asking that question, Jedi Nerd,
Yeah,
so
that was a
much.
great.
That's
That
so
was a great.
important. Yeah. So important to touch on that, because again, we can focus on the positive, and if you focus on the positive and what this community does for us, there's only good to look at. But yeah, and I mean, just speaking about all that positivity and how important it is to unify and everything, guys. I've said this on every single one of the podcast episodes that we have recorded, that we're going to be launching. But if any of you guys are not a member of US ARC, message me. If you cannot afford a bronze, silver, gold membership, message me. Let's talk. Let's make something happen. We'll make it happen. We need numbers. If you guys have not,
Absolutely.
if you haven't subscribed to USARC's YouTube page, it's so important that that YouTube page has. I mean, man, okay, we have like 18,000 group members in the Retic Nation Facebook group. I cannot imagine how many ball python keepers there are out there in the United States, let alone retic keepers and all these other keepers. And I think that page still, I haven't looked. I'll look on my phone right now. But the amount of subscribers that page has right now, it's upsetting to me.
The US Art page.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, it was like 4 and some change last time I looked, I think.
Yeah, 6.4K subscribers. Why? Like that to me. So please go subscribe, go like the videos, because here's what happens. If we're put in a corner, those social media numbers mean so much. and just we all need to have each other's back. We're all grateful for one another, and the yeah, like you mentioned, just the ability to connect with you tonight, and everybody who's been engaged has been a blessing. It's been great.
And the other thing too that I always speak on, it's hard to just say one thing because there's so many things, but I always say I owe these snakes like so much, just because working with these snakes has taught me a lot about myself. It's taught me patience. It's given me just something to shoot for, because like now I have all these goals that I didn't have before. It's an opportunity for like me and my wife to connect on something different and grow something different. It's an opportunity to meet all these different people. So there's just so many things. Actually even getting in front of people, because I'm not like a person that naturally goes in front of a lot of people and speaks, and just that's just not me. Like I'm the kind of person that I'd rather just kind of sit back in the cut, observe everybody else, and just kind of do my own thing. And so like giving me a reason to do all of that, I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for like working with these animals. And so that's another thing that I'm super grateful for, is just them, and just kind of growing myself is
Yeah,
essentially what I'm saying. Like
yeah,
I'm not that guy. I'm not this strong orator or anything like that, but just kind of pulling me out of my shell. Right?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and super grateful for that. Hit the nail on the head.
Cool. So I know it's getting late. We're almost on 2 hours. I do have a few random questions for you
Cool.
before I let you get out of here and enjoy the rest of your night. But if you could live anywhere in the world, where would that be and why?
Easy. Kauai. Kauai, Hawaii. My wife and I have been there once on vacation. We've been to Hawaii twice, and Kauai is. I mentioned my background in being a therapist, a
Mm-hmm.
psychotherapist. I work with veterans and their family members, and so being a therapist, I do kung fu and tai chi. That's like a nerd thing about me. I've been doing it for 6 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I've been and um, so I connect with nature, and there's the chi. There's an energy that nature provides me, and I can get that in a lot of places. But when I went on vacation to Kauai, um, it's probably the most pristine, untouched land in the entire United States. And when I got there, I just remember taking a deep breath and just like, it was weird. I've gone on vacations and I've loved it. I've never felt at home anywhere. Kauai, I got there and I just felt like I belonged there.
Nice.
For those of you that don't know, like 78, don't quote me on that, but like over 75% of that island is untouched. The air that you breathe is pure.
Nice.
And the people were super welcoming versus like going to Maui or going to the other big islands. They look and they're like, "You're white, get out of here." And so Kauai was just breathtakingly beautiful. People there were accepting. Everywhere I went, people were saying aloha, and it was just like, man, it was awesome.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I've never been to Hawaii. That'd be pretty cool to go.
So, fun fact: my wife is crazy, and I mean that. She goes on. She has these Facebook pages of like. So what we do is when we were really young, when we got married. We got married. I was 22 when we got married.
Okay.
We paid off all of our credit card debt, and then my wife found a life hack. And so what we've done is there are certain high end credit cards that after rebuilding our credit, we were able to you apply for, and if you spend $3,000 or $5,000 in the first 3 months, so any expense that we had or any time that we were like, okay, we need to buy a sofa or we need a TV, we would apply for these credit cards, and they would give you like 80,000 or 120,000 points if you meet that spending limit. We have traveled all over the country and to other parts of the world, and we haven't spent other than like our food costs and other, but like
Like
hotels,
incidentals and stuff.
hotels and airfare. We haven't spent a dime on
Oh,
any of our
nice.
on any of our vacations because my wife found this life hack. So
Nice.
I've been to Hawaii 2 times. We're probably going to go again next year. And it's not because we're loaded or we have a bunch of money. It's because we literally found this credit card hack that, you know, we don't have a single bit of debt. Yeah, shout out to Crazy Wise. And so, yeah, so she found that hack. And so we have 0 credit card debt because what we're doing is we're using the money that we have to what we were planning on purchasing or like daily expenses. And we just use a credit card instead of our debit card. And poof, yeah, it's been great.
That's a good life hack. All right. So, if you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, it doesn't matter, who would it be and why?
Ryan Reynolds. Because he's just a down to earth, funny dude.
He's hilarious.
Yeah. Matthew McConaughey.
Okay.
He's a Texas favorite here, and
Yeah, he's
by the way,
he's a big Longhorn fan. Are you a Longhorn fan?
I am. I'm an adopted Longhorn fan though, because I only moved to Texas 6 years ago, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be a Longhorn fan.
Who were you before then, or did you?
So I played college sports, and I played college baseball, and so for me, I never really followed college sports a lot because I felt like giving amateurs recognition was really weird. But now that I'm not in college anymore, yeah, I've been following the Longhorns a lot. So prior to me just moving here and living in Florida, shout out to Gators.
Yeah, yes, sir. Go Gators.
Yeah,
did you see it? Did you see it?
Exactly. I've seen you sip on that before. And so, yeah, I love and respect the Gators, especially what they do in football. So Matthew McConaughey, just because the guy has so much to offer and he's so smart. As a matter of fact, I'm doing relief in Uvalde, Texas right now. Every Thursday with my company, I go to Uvalde to help with relief for the shooting that just happened. And I almost got the chance to meet him. They wanted to meet with our company. They weren't able to make it that day. So hopefully I'll get the chance to meet with him next week. Cause he's doing a lot for the community. He's just a very, very big, he's a community influence. He gives back to Texas in every way, shape, or form, which I think is huge for celebrities, right?
Texas guy. Yeah, absolutely.
And third person would probably have to be Joe Rogan.
Okay.
And the reason why is just because the guy's a jack of all trades. He knows a lot about everything, and he's a very motivational person. And I felt like if I could have dinner with him and sit down with him and talk to him, I would leave feeling like I could take on the world.
Nice. This is the first time catching it live, and I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I will continue to come back. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you.
Appreciate you watching.
And then another random question. If you were to win $10 million, how would you use it?
If I were to win $10 million, how would I use it? Boy. All right. So first and foremost, everyone in my family would be taken care of.
Nice.
And my wife's family. They all deserve a break.
Nice.
I'd buy a good piece of land and property, and I would build what I need to for my snakes, for my wife and I to be happy. And I would definitely invest. I would probably hire the best financial advisor that I can get, and I'd probably give him $3 million, and I say, here, make my money grow. And I would probably start a nonprofit for foster care.
Nice.
There's a big topic right now about women's rights being taken away with abortion. I know it's a very touchy subject, but with me and the work that I do, working with kids, working with just being a therapist, there's the other side of people that if you are if you're pro-life, 100% okay with that. Where everybody's entitled to their opinion, but what I think that people don't really realize is that, like, we have, hundreds of thousands of people in the foster care system that are in houses that are creating trauma for kids and are just not a good place. And I would like to develop some type of nonprofit to be able to give back to foster care kids so that they can have a better life while they're in foster care, find ways to get them adopted into good families. And yeah, I think that's what I would do. So
That's dope,
take
man.
care of my family, take care of myself, get me a nice house, buy me a nice truck, an Acura NSX, and I try to start a nonprofit with foster care.
I love the recurring themes there. And it's not the recurring theme is it's not all about you. Like it's about giving back and about helping people. So,
100%. I mean, I don't even know what I would do with $10 million. Like that's, I mean, I guess it's really not that much money, but at the same time, like if I had 10 million, that's a lot of money. And I feel like I'd be such a douchebag if I kept it to myself, man.
Absolutely. Much respect. Yes, 100%. 100%. And so, what's one question you wish I would have asked you, and how would you have answered that question?
I guess I would have. I wish you would have asked me, and I'm okay that you didn't. But I guess I would have. I wish you would have asked me a little bit more what I do about like my personal life. Just because I love the opportunity to advocate for mental health. I'm a mental health therapist. I do psychotherapy for veterans and their families, and destigmatizing, counseling, getting help, especially for veterans, because it's so stigmatizing for veterans to get help. Veterans are one of the populations that when they discharge and they are, we also serve active duty as well. I see active duty members, but it is so difficult to for these individuals to get counseling because there's such a stigma, a negative stigma about reaching out when you need help. And I would have loved to have talked a little bit more about PTSD and how treatable and how it's definitely something that's recoverable. There's so many people out there that think that once you have PTSD, there's you just have to learn how to live with it, and that's not true. I've treated people with PTSD, and I've seen that diagnosis go away and melt away, and them learn to live a beautiful, healthy lifestyle just by coming in and talking to someone. So for anyone that is listening, and you're struggling with mental health, anxiety, depression, attachment, OCD, whatever the case may be on anything, or even just like life adjustments that are that are just difficult to go through, go talk to someone. And if you are contemplating, but you're like, it's not affordable, it's not expensive, reach out to me, because every single place that there's resources and there's a way for you to find affordable help to just to talk to someone, to have a non-biased, objective opinion on how to get support for you.
And Antoine from High Desert Python said it. It took me a long time to go out there and ask for help, and he's glad that he did.
Antoine, what's up? I've seen you a lot of time on Chris's little Zoom meetings. How's it going, man? I'm glad to see that you did your first show. Thanks so much for coming in late, man.
So you sit in on the Reptile Keepers Zoom call with Chris? Word. Yeah.
Not every week. I do the best that I can, but it is interesting to say the least.
Yeah. So I've sat in on 2 so far. I'm gonna try to log on tomorrow. Jen Kate was on the show Thursday, and she was like, "You need to get your ass back in there." And so,
Jen is great, man. Chris is always talking about her tits. I feel so bad for her. Jen, I am so sorry that you are being subjected to that, but Chris, I love you.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, it's a great show.
Yeah. I want to get back on there. I'm gonna try to log on tomorrow. Just gotta make it happen.
Yeah, I plan to be there, so hopefully you'll be there.
Okay, word. Well, Well, it was great talking with you tonight. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, Mike, I
Um,
mean it, man. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you. This has been great. I've learned a lot because admittedly I don't know a whole lot about retics. Like I know some basic stuff, but this is the second person who's been like a big, well, really third person. That's been like a big retake keeper, and so like each time I have someone on the show, I learn something different. I learn something new, a different way to think about it. So I really, really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm glad we can make everything work, scheduling wise, and this is pretty cool doing something on a Saturday night. So yeah, definitely, definitely.
100%. Again, thanks again. Hey, everyone who is here, who asked questions, I appreciate the engagement. It definitely makes this stuff easier and felt like home here. So, Mike, hopefully we get the opportunity to do this again down the road. I definitely
Absolutely,
will have
absolutely,
you on our podcast too. Would love to have you on.
absolutely. Absolutely, and I think I mean I saw people make comments on it in the chat, and I pulled up all the ones that I caught, but folks are like super appreciative of the openness and being willing to talk about specific subjects, and definitely the knowledge you shared. So it's been a great episode, great episode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man. I again very thankful for all of you guys, and yeah, my job is to you know, as a therapist, just to destigmatize and just normalize that kind of stuff. And then, of course, snake talk is all what we're here for, and love and have a passion. Like I said, any connection is one gained, and very, very, very thankful to be able to be here and connect with you, connect to everyone else.
and definitely looking forward to the Reptile Lounge. I'm always, always, always looking for new podcasts to listen to, especially on Saturdays when we're doing our deep cleaning in the snake room. So yeah, definitely looking forward to the
Tune in,
Reptile
man.
Lounge. I mean, not the Retake Lounge. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. The Retake
It's okay.
Lounge.
We almost called it the Reptile Lounge.
Okay, yeah, the Retake Lounge. That's my bad. So I've already messed up the branding, but Retake Lounge, and then tell everybody everywhere else they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so right now you can follow me at lab, so LAB_exotics on Instagram. You can also look up Lab Exotics on Facebook as well. That's where the two of them, that's where I'm mostly active in the two social media platforms I have. Please go ahead and give me a follow. Love to create to connect with you guys on there. If you guys follow me and I'm not following you back, I'm following more people than I have followers, just because again I like to support as many people as I can, and yeah, looking forward to you guys seeing what I do there. You guys can see pictures of all of my animals, all of my breeding plans. I'm an open book. I know a lot of people like to keep some things off to the side, but I love to share everything that I'm doing. If someone beats me to a world's first, so be it.
So be it. Right.
So yeah, follow me on there. Just Lab Exotics. You'll see a little flask, like a lab flask shaped like a snake. And yeah, that's how you can find me.
Yeah, and you got some amazing animals posted too. Like
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
really, really nice. Really, really nice. All right. So everyone in the chat, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate the support. Looking forward to seeing you this Thursday. We've got Derek from Derek's Reptiles this Thursday at 8. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled time. So same bat time, same bat channel. Lucas, if you can hang around for a second, I'm gonna play the outro real quick, and then we can chat a little bit before you get out of here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everyone.